Welcome to African Folktales by Big Mark, where timeless stories come to life. Each tale is more than just a story, it's an experience. So sit back, relax, and let the magic unfold. In the heart of Oruwoko, a village where the red earth kissed the souls of every passerby, lived a girl named Amara. She was known for her kindness, the sweetness of her laughter, and the light that always seemed to dance in her eyes. She wasn't the most beautiful girl in the village, not by the standards of chiseled cheekbones and smooth skin, but there was something about her spirit that made her unforgettable. From a young age, Amara had been taught the importance of humility, respect, and hard work. She learned to cook long before her peers, perfected the art of weaving mats, and could balance a calabash of water on her head without spilling a drop. But beyond her skills and her heart of gold, Amara carried a dream tucked carefully inside her chest, the dream of being loved, deeply and faithfully. It was during the festival of the harvest moon, with the air thick with the scents of roasted yam and spicy stews, that she met Obinna. He stood tall among the dancers, laughter rumbling from his chest like distant thunder. His eyes, dark and kind, found Amara's across the crowd, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. Their first conversation was clumsy and filled with shy smiles. Amara had been chasing after a runaway goat when she collided into Obinna. Her basket spilled, scattering guavas and garden eggs across the dusty ground. As she scrambled to gather them, Obinna knelt beside her, chuckling as he handed her a particularly bruised guava. "The goat has more spirit than some men here," he teased, eyes twinkling. Amara laughed, the sound bubbling up uncontrollably. She thanked him, and as their hands briefly touched over a fallen mango, something shifted between them, an invisible thread had been tied. Obinna began visiting Amara's home under innocent pretenses, asking for water after long hunts, offering to help fix her father's crumbling fence, bringing gifts of dried fish and honeycomb. Amara, for her part, responded with meals that made his mouth water and conversation that soothed the weariness from his soul. She gave him everything she knew how to give: care, respect, loyalty. She mended his clothes when they tore, packed him meals when he went to the farms, and listened to him with a tenderness that made his heart ache. The villagers began to murmur, and Amara's mother often caught her humming love songs as she stirred the cooking pot. It was under the sacred baobab tree that Obinna finally knelt, dust clinging to his knees, a simple silver ring in his calloused hand. "Amara," he said, voice rough with emotion, "will you walk with me for the rest of our days?" Tears streamed down Amara's face as she nodded, unable to find her voice. She had dreamed of this moment so many nights that it felt surreal. She slipped the ring onto her finger, the silver glinting in the afternoon sun, a symbol of promises whispered beneath stars. Their wedding was the talk of the village. The drums beat through the night, the women danced until dawn, and the elders blessed their union with ancient songs. Amara, in a flowing blue wrapper, glowed brighter than the moon. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Amara's belly began to swell with new life. She walked with pride, cradling her unborn child, while Obinna showered her with affection and gifts. They were happy, unbearably so. But happiness, like the seasons, has a way of shifting when one least expects. Months into her pregnancy, Amara realized she could no longer handle all the house chores alone. The baby inside her grew heavier each day, and simple tasks like fetching water or pounding yam left her breathless. Obinna, ever attentive, insisted she find someone to help around the house. It was Amara's mother who suggested it. "There's a girl from our village," she said one evening, sipping warm palm wine. "Her name is Adaeze. She's only 12. Her family is poor. They would be grateful if you took her in." And so, Adaeze came into their lives. The girl was thin as a reed and quiet as a falling leaf. Her eyes, wide and brown, seemed too large for her face. She bowed low when she greeted them, her hands trembling as she carried her small bag, which contained only a few threadbare clothes. Amara welcomed her warmly at first. She showed Adaeze how to sweep the compound properly, how to wash the baby clothes, and how to grind pepper without spilling. Adaeze learned quickly, her small hands nimble and eager to please. Obinna treated the girl like a younger sister, often ruffling her hair and offering her fruits from the market. He believed that kindness raised better people. But Amara, oh, sweet Amara, began to change. At first, it was small things. She would scold Adaeze sharply for dropping a cup or forgetting to dust a stool. Then the punishments grew harsher. A missed chore meant no dinner. A spilled bucket of water meant a slap. Jealousy, bitter and creeping, began to rot inside Amara's heart. She saw the way Obinna laughed when Adaeze made a joke, the way he gently corrected her when she made a mistake. She saw the gratitude in Adaeze's eyes, the same look Amara once wore when she first fell in love. It was irrational, perhaps, but jealousy rarely asks permission to grow. The meals given to Adaeze became smaller, less frequent. Some nights, the girl went to bed with only water in her belly, crying silently into the thin mat that was her bed. New clothes were bought for the unborn baby, soft and colorful, but Adaeze's torn dresses were left untouched. When Adaeze fell ill during the harmattan season, coughing until her small body shook, Amara refused to take her to the hospital. "She's pretending," Amara said coldly, turning her face away. But Adaeze survived. Somehow, with the stubbornness of a tree clinging to a crumbling cliff, she lived. And each night, after the house had gone silent, she would whisper prayers into the darkness, not for herself, but for Amara to love her. It was a prayer the wind carried away unanswered. Soon, Amara gave birth to a bouncing baby girl they named Ifunanya, meaning, love. The baby had chubby cheeks and a dimpled smile that melted hearts. Obinna was overjoyed, carrying the child everywhere he went, showing her off like a king's prized jewel. And Adaeze, dear, gentle Adaeze, loved the baby as if she were her own flesh and blood. She sang lullabies to her, rocked her to sleep, washed her clothes until they gleamed. She never once let her sadness touch the baby, pouring into the child all the love she herself was denied. Yet, as the years passed, Amara's cruelty grew like a weed. Adaeze was not sent to school, while Ifunanya had books piled higher than her small arms could carry. Adaeze's dresses were patched beyond recognition, while Ifunanya wore lace and satin. When Adaeze swept the compound, she did so under the glaring eyes of villagers who whispered and shook their heads. Obinna noticed. At first, he begged Amara gently. "She is just a child," he said one evening as they sat by the fire. "She deserves better." But Amara's heart, once tender and bright, had hardened into something unrecognizable. She waved him off, accusing him of favoring the maid over his own wife. As time stretched on, Adaeze grew into a beautiful young woman. Her beauty wasn't the flashy kind that demanded attention. It was quiet, like the slow opening of a morning flower, delicate, soft, and breathtaking to behold. Yet she always looked worn, dressed in tattered hand-me-downs and shoes so thin they barely protected her feet from the burning earth. It was during a market day, amidst the clamor of buyers and sellers, that a young wealthy merchant named Chinedu first noticed her. He watched her from afar as she haggled over the price of yams, her movements graceful despite the heavy basket she carried. Her kindness shone as she helped an old woman gather fallen okra pods, laughing gently even when the woman snapped at her. Chinedu was smitten. He asked around, learned of her hardships, and his heart ached. How could someone so full of light be buried under so much pain? He approached her the next week, offering small gifts, a piece of cloth, a string of colorful beads. Adaeze refused at first, fearful of what Amara would do if she found out. But Chinedu was persistent, and slowly, Adaeze's walls began to crumble. Each time Chinedu gave her money to buy herself something new, Adaeze would return home only to have it snatched away by Amara. "It's for the family," Amara would say sharply, even as she used the money to buy new wrappers for herself and Ifunanya. Still, Chinedu loved Adaeze fiercely. He proposed marriage, declaring before the elders that he wished to make her his wife. But Amara, wicked, jealous Amara, intervened. Again and again, weddings were arranged and cancelled. First, it was that the day was inauspicious. Then it was that Adaeze was needed at home. Then it was rumors whispered about Adaeze's character, lies planted like thorns. 7 times. 7 times Chinedu tried to marry her. 7 times Amara found a way to destroy it. At last, the village elders stepped in. They summoned Amara, demanded she stop her wickedness, and blessed the union themselves. On a bright, cloudless day, with the scent of marigolds and fresh rain in the air, Adaeze finally became Chinedu's wife. She wept as she walked to her new home, tears streaming freely, not from sadness, but from the unbearable release of long years of suffering. In Chinedu's arms, she found peace. In his eyes, she rediscovered herself. And slowly, ever so slowly, Adaeze blossomed. Life with Chinedu was like waking up inside a dream Adaeze never dared to believe could be real. In their compound at the edge of Okuda village, flowers bloomed in rows of yellow and red. There was always the scent of fresh bread from the kitchen, and laughter that floated like music through open windows. Chinedu adored her. He treated her like a rare jewel, polishing away the years of dirt and neglect she had suffered. For the first time in her life, Adaeze wore dresses that fit, that were soft against her skin. She no longer slept on a thin mat on the floor but on a large bed covered with thick, colorful cloths. Most importantly, for the first time, she was seen. Not as a burden, not as a servant, but as a woman worthy of love. Chinedu often said, "You are the brightest star in the night sky, Adaeze. You just needed someone to wipe the dust away." She laughed when he said such things, shy but radiant, like a river finally set free after years of drought. Adaeze took pride in her new life. She learned quickly how to manage the household, how to host visitors with grace, how to cook the special dishes Chinedu loved. They were not only husband and wife, but friends, partners who moved through life hand in hand. Within a year, Adaeze's beauty became legendary. The once tattered girl became the woman young girls in the village whispered about and tried to imitate. Her kindness remained unchanged, but now it shone even brighter, backed by dignity and confidence. Chinedu prospered in his business ventures, trading in fine fabrics and rare spices, and they lacked for nothing. And yet, as the winds of fortune carried Adaeze higher, a storm brewed far behind her. In the heart of the village, Amara's home was changing. Ifunanya, sweet little Ifunanya, who once toddled after Adaeze clutching her skirts, had grown into a spirited young girl. She was clever and lively, adored by her father and doted on by everyone. But her health began to fail. It started with fevers that refused to break. Then came the sudden weakness, the unexplained bruises on her skin. Obina and Amara rushed her from one doctor to another, from herbalists to priests, but the child grew thinner, paler, weaker. One evening, after an exhausting day of tests and prayers, the doctor gave his grim news. "She needs a rare type of blood," he said heavily, "one very hard to find. If we do not find it soon, prepare yourselves." Amara collapsed into Obina's arms, wailing so loudly that even the goats in the neighbor's compound bleated in fright. Obina tried to be strong, but inside, he was breaking. They tested everyone in the family, no match. Friends, neighbors, cousins, none matched. It was as if the gods themselves had turned their backs on them. Then, one night as Amara sat beside Ifunanya's hospital bed, the realization struck her like lightning. Adaeze. The girl she had mistreated, starved, beaten down. The girl who had once mothered Ifunanya with more love than she herself could summon. It was a desperate thought. A shameful one. But when your child's life hangs on a thread, pride dies a quick death. Amara rose from her chair and ran through the streets of Okuda like a madwoman. She searched for Adaeze's home, her heart hammering painfully in her chest. People stared as she stumbled through the dust, her wrapper half unraveled, her face streaked with tears and sweat. At last, she found the house. Beautiful, large, with colorful lanterns hanging at the gate. Amara hesitated. Her hands trembled. Would Adaeze even open the door? Would she slam it in her face, spit at her feet, laugh at her suffering? It would be no more than she deserved. But Amara had no choice. Her child's life was draining away. She fell to her knees and knocked. When the door opened, and Adaeze appeared, radiant in a simple blue gown, her face serene, Amara burst into tears. Please, Amara choked out, pressing her forehead to the ground. Please, my child. Ifunanya, she needs you. For a long moment, Adaeze said nothing. The night air buzzed with the sound of crickets. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crowed prematurely. Chinedu came to stand behind Adaeze, his hand on her shoulder, his face stern. They could have turned her away. Every right to do so had been earned. But Adaeze knelt down, touched Amara's hand, and lifted her up gently. I will help, she said simply. Because kindness was who she was. It had always been who she was. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Adaeze walked through its narrow halls, her slippers whispering against the tiled floor. Nurses and doctors glanced at her curiously as she passed. A woman who carried herself with a quiet dignity that didn't quite match the worn seats and peeling walls of the old village hospital. Chinedu stayed close behind her, his face tight with concern. Amara led them both, her shoulders hunched, her spirit weighed down by guilt heavier than a mountain. When they reached Ifunanya's room, Adaeze paused. There, on the small metal-framed bed, lay the child she once cradled, once sang to, once fed small pieces of roasted yam when her mother wasn't looking. Ifunanya's skin was pale, almost translucent. Her small chest rose and fell with effort. Tubes snaked into her arms, and machines beeped softly at her bedside, measuring life in fragile beats. Adaeze's throat tightened. The memories came rushing back. The giggles, the sticky hugs, the whispered secrets the child had once shared with her in the quiet of the night. Without a word, Adaeze turned to the nurse waiting by the door. I'm ready, she said. The nurse nodded solemnly and led her away to draw the precious blood. The process was slow, painful. She felt dizzy, the room tilting slightly. But Adaeze never once complained. When it was done, she sat quietly, sipping the bitter medicinal drink they gave her, while the doctors worked quickly to transfuse the blood into Ifunanya's fragile veins. Hours passed. Night deepened into dawn. Adaeze refused to leave. She sat by the window, hands clasped tightly in prayer, her heart thudding with hope and fear. Finally, as the first pale light of morning crept through the window, Ifunanya stirred. Her fingers twitched. Her eyes fluttered open. Amara gasped and rushed to her side, tears pouring freely down her face. The doctors examined her quickly, smiles breaking across their faces. She will live, one announced. The blood is taking. She will live. Chinedu sank into a chair, exhausted. He reached for Adaeze's hand, gripping it tightly. Across the room, Amara fell to her knees once again, sobbing uncontrollably. Thank you. Oh Adaeze. Thank you. May the gods bless you beyond measure. May your children never know sorrow. Adaeze knelt beside her and gently lifted her up. There is no need for that, she said softly. Ifunanya is part of me. She always has been. Those words shattered whatever pride remained in Amara's heart. She wept openly, clutching Adaeze's hands. Forgive me, she whispered over and over. Forgive me for all I did to you. Forgive my wickedness. Forgive my blindness. And because Adaeze's heart was not made of stone, she forgave her. Right there, amidst the beeping machines and the whispered prayers of hope, the chains of the past broke. Life, however, is not like a story that ends neatly with one grand act of forgiveness. Healing takes time. When Ifunanya was finally strong enough to leave the hospital, Adaeze and Chinedu hosted a small feast in their home to celebrate her recovery. The villagers came, bringing gifts and songs. It was at this feast that Amara made a public confession. Standing before the crowd, with tears in her eyes and shame on her face, she told the story of Adaeze's years under her roof. She spoke of the cruelty, the starvation, the theft, the attempts to sabotage her marriage, all of it. The crowd listened in stunned silence. Some wept. Some shook their heads in anger. When she finished, Amara knelt before Adaeze once more. This woman, she said, has a heart greater than the tallest mountain. She saved my daughter, though I did not deserve her kindness. The villagers erupted into cheers, chanting Adaeze's name, celebrating her not only for her beauty but for her boundless spirit. From that day, Adaeze became more than just a beloved wife. She became a living legend in Okuda village, a symbol of forgiveness, resilience, and grace. Amara changed. Truly changed. She abandoned her pride and selfishness. She became a woman of humility, known for her newfound kindness. It was as though Adaeze's mercy had birthed something new inside her, something pure. Surprisingly, it was Adaeze who supported her. Quietly, month after month, she sent parcels of food, money, and clothes to Amara's house. She made sure Ifunanya had everything she needed to grow up strong and healthy. Even when Chinedu asked, "Are you sure you want to continue helping her?" Adaeze simply smiled and said, "It is not for her. It is for the girl who once loved me without asking anything in return." In time, Adaeze and Amara's relationship grew into something strange but beautiful. Not quite mother and daughter. Not quite friends. But something sacred, forged in pain and healed by love. Years passed. Adaeze gave birth to her own children, 2 sons and a daughter, all healthy and radiant like their mother. Chinedu continued to thrive in his businesses, and together they built not just a home, but an empire of kindness and generosity that stretched across villages. They sponsored orphans through school, built wells for villages that had none, supported widows and the elderly. And Adaeze, she remained unchanged in spirit, a woman whose heart was as vast as the open sky. The little girl who once cried silently into the night, hoping for love, had grown into a queen, not one crowned by gold, but by the hands and hearts of those she touched. The village of Okuda grew and changed over the years, just as the people within it did. New roads were built, linking dusty trails to bustling market squares. New homes rose from the red earth, colorful fabrics fluttering in the windows like flags of hope. But some things in Okuda never changed. Stories still passed from mouth to mouth like precious heirlooms, whispered by firelight, woven into the fabric of the people's lives. And among these stories, none was more beloved than the tale of Adaeze, the girl who once had nothing but a battered soul and a heart full of dreams, and who rose to become a woman of unimaginable grace. Adaeze herself moved through the village like a spirit of blessing. She visited homes where mothers had no food to feed their children, dropping off baskets filled with yams, beans, and dried fish. She sponsored young girls who would otherwise have been sold into servitude, sending them to schools far beyond the reach of poverty. She smiled easily, hugged freely, loved deeply. Yet even a heart as big as Adaeze's carried old scars. Some nights, when the village slept and the stars blanketed the sky, she sat on her veranda with Chinedu by her side, remembering. "I wonder sometimes," she said one evening, her voice soft as the night air, "how different life would have been if I had turned bitter." Chinedu reached for her hand. "You chose kindness," he said simply. "Even when no one deserved it. That is your power." Adaeze smiled faintly. "But sometimes, I still hear the little girl crying," she whispered. "The one who slept on a cold floor, who prayed for scraps, who longed for love." Chinedu pulled her close. "She is not crying anymore," he said, resting his forehead against hers. "She has become the woman sitting beside me, a woman who turned her tears into rivers of blessing." Adaeze closed her eyes, feeling his warmth seep into her bones. It was true. The echoes of her past would always live inside her, but they no longer ruled her. They were simply reminders of the road she had traveled, the battles she had won. Meanwhile, Amara, the woman who had once been her greatest tormentor, lived humbly now. She sold palm oil and roasted groundnuts at the market, greeting customers with a humility that melted even the hardest hearts. Ifunanya grew into a beautiful, spirited young woman, full of laughter and kindness. Often, Ifunanya visited Adaeze's home, treating her like a second mother. She would sit at Adaeze's feet, helping to braid her hair or peel cassava, chatting about everything and nothing. Auntie Adaeze, she said one afternoon, tilting her head curiously, how did you find it in your heart to forgive my mother? After all she did. Adaeze smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from Ifunanya's forehead. My dear child, she said, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Forgiveness is not a gift you give them, it's a freedom you give yourself. Ifunanya pondered that in silence, her young face thoughtful. Adaeze leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Besides, she said, if I had not forgiven, I would have missed out on knowing you. Tears welled in Ifunanya's eyes. She hugged Adaeze tightly, the bond between them stronger than blood. In time, the villagers began to ask Adaeze to teach them not just how to forgive, but how to live with such unshakable kindness. How to build lives that were bigger than bitterness, stronger than resentment. And so, quietly, Adaeze and Chinedu founded a small center at the edge of Okuda village, a place where children could learn, women could gather, and broken spirits could find healing. They called it Undu Center, meaning life, in the old tongue. It was built on the land where Adaeze had once worked as a maid, sweeping floors and scrubbing pots. Now, it blossomed with gardens, laughter, and hope. But even the brightest lights are tested by shadows. One evening, word came that Amara had fallen gravely ill. Adaeze wasted no time. She packed a basket of medicines, fresh fruits, and healing herbs, and rushed to her old enemy's home. She found Amara lying on a mat, her breathing shallow, her once strong body frail. Yet when Amara saw Adaeze, a smile spread across her wrinkled face. My daughter, she whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. You came. Adaeze knelt beside her and took her hand gently. I will always come, she said. Tears slid down Amara's cheeks. I do not deserve your kindness, she murmured. None of us do, Adaeze replied softly. That is why it is called grace. For 3 days and nights, Adaeze cared for Amara, nursing her back from the edge of death. On the 4th day, Amara woke stronger, her eyes clearer. She asked Adaeze to bring Ifunanya. When the young woman arrived, Amara sat them both down, struggling to find the words. My child, she said to Ifunanya, her voice breaking, the best gift you can give yourself is to never repeat my mistakes. Love freely, forgive quickly, and honor the ones who stood by you when no one else would. She turned to Adaeze. And you, may the gods grant you blessings tenfold. You saved me, not just my body, but my soul. She raised trembling hands and blessed Adaeze. A deep, sacred blessing from the heart, witnessed by the spirits and the winds that carried their words. The rains came early that year in Okuda. Heavy, cleansing rains that washed the dust from the roads, soaked deep into the thirsty earth, and filled the village wells to overflowing. It was a season of new beginnings. Adaeze stood by the window of her home, watching the rain fall in silver sheets, her hands resting gently on the swell of her belly. Yes, she was carrying life now. A new life, a new chapter. Chinedu entered quietly behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Our child will know only love, he whispered against her ear. Adaeze smiled, leaning back into him. They will know kindness, she said, and the strength that comes from forgiving, even when it feels impossible. They stood together in silence, listening to the rain, dreaming of the future. Meanwhile, in a small hut on the far side of the village, Amara grew stronger day by day. Her illness had left her frail, but her spirit was fiercer than ever, not with pride or anger, but with gratitude. She no longer sought riches or power. She no longer cared for gossip or village status. Her heart's only ambition was to live out her days in peace, to love her daughter well, and to honor the girl she had once wronged so terribly, the girl who had become the woman who saved her life. Ifunanya helped her mother rebuild their modest home. Together, they planted a small garden, growing peppers, okra, and cassava. Each harvest, They sent a portion to the Undu Center, as a quiet token of thanks. The Undu Center flourished beyond everyone's imagination. Under Adaeze's leadership, it became a haven not just for Okuda, but for neighboring villages as well. Widows found work making crafts and weaving mats. Children who once roamed the streets barefoot and hungry now carried books and wore bright uniforms. Young girls who might have been sold into early marriages learned to read, to write, to dream. Adaeze taught them all, not just with lessons but with her life. She taught them that forgiveness was not weakness, it was the ultimate strength. She taught them that kindness was not foolishness, it was the foundation of true power. She taught them that no matter where you came from, no matter how low you had been brought, you could rise higher than the mountains. One bright market day, the village gathered for a festival. There was drumming and dancing, laughter and the scent of roasted maize and spicy jollof rice. At the center of it all stood Adaeze, radiant in a flowing wrapper of deep blue and gold. Chinedu stood proudly by her side, their love a quiet, powerful thing that needed no grand displays. Ifunanya danced among the youth, her laughter rising like music into the sky. Amara sat beneath a tree, clapping along, her heart lighter than it had been in decades. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the village square, the elders called for Adaeze to step forward. Chief Nonso, the village head, raised his staff and spoke in a voice that carried across the fields. Today, we honor a woman who rose from dust to become a pillar of this community. A woman who showed us the power of mercy, the beauty of kindness, and the strength of a heart that refuses to hate. Adaeze, daughter of grace, child of hope, we bless you. The villagers erupted into cheers, drums pounding in rhythm. Adaeze stepped forward, tears in her eyes, and bowed her head humbly. I am only what love has made me, she said simply. And I pray that love continues to be the story of Okuda, from now until forever. Later that night, under a sky ablaze with stars, Adaeze and Chinedu sat on their veranda once more. Their hands were intertwined, their hearts beating in time. What now, my love? Chinedu asked, a smile playing on his lips. Adaeze looked up at the vast sky. Now, she said, her voice steady and full of wonder, we build a future. One brick of kindness at a time. One seed of hope at a time. One life touched at a time. And as the night embraced them, as the spirit of Okuda sang through the trees and the rivers, Adaeze knew. Her story was far from over. It had only just begun. This is the end of the story. Every story holds a seed of wisdom, and with each story, we grow a little deeper into the roots of our culture. If today's tale sparked a thought or touched your spirit, don't just keep it to yourself, share it. Let the story travel. Hit that subscribe button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which lesson stood out to you. I'm Big Mark, keeping the fire of storytelling burning bright. Until the next tale, stay wise, stay proud, and keep listening.